Welcome back. A marathon runner in the prime of her life dies a mysterious death. Was it an accident or was it murder? John Woodward untangles a case that police initially insisted was an accidental drowning in British Columbia's Okanagan Lake.
There are mysteries these waters don't give up easily. Okanagan Lake, here in southern British Columbia, around 3 people drowned every year. In 2016, one of those unlucky ones was Arlene Westervelt. She was 56.
Must be hard.
It's hard, yeah, very hard.
Debbie Hennig is Arlene's sister.
Arlene was really special. She had a big heart. She was very loving, very kind, very caring, very compassionate.
Debbie remembers Arlene through pictures that show how Arlene loved to travel. She loved being active too.
If it was a tropical location, she would get up and run the beach and run to town. So no matter where we were, that was the focus of her life. Anyway,
She was a marathon runner.
She was, absolutely, Arlene. She excelled in many things.
She wanted to see the world, so she became a travel agent. Arlene met her husband Bert at the Commonwealth Games in Australia in the early 1980s. He was a caring, warm-hearted man that captured Arlene's heart. They traveled together and then got married in Edmonton, a wedding remembered fondly by Bert's siblings, Hank, Alice, and Ed.
What was it, do you think, that worked in this marriage?
I really think they had common interests. They both loved traveling and they loved the adventure of traveling. They were both pretty free spirits. Yeah, I think they hit it off.
They loved each other. You could see that. You could see what they had together was special.
And I believed them to be in love.
Images of a loving couple, but behind closed doors, some families say all may not have been well. The couple lived in Lake Country, north of Kelowna, just a short drive from the shore. That's where they set in on June 26, 2016 for an afternoon paddle and a picnic. The weather around 20 degrees with little wind. Later that day, Arlene's uncle Don Hennig got a phone call he would never forget from the Lake Country RCMP.
They told me that the canoe capsized and she was missing. And would I please come out there as quick as I could?
You were the person Bert wanted the RCMP to call.
Yeah, exactly. I could tell he was definitely in shock. He said, Arlene reached for something, I think a bottle of water, and he said, I counter-reacted because the canoe was leaning over the way she reached. I counter-reacted to offset the balance of the canoe, and over it went.
Police telling reporters at the time a version of the same story.
The male who surfaced was frantically looking for life jackets to put on a life jacket and assist his wife.
Don returned with Bert to the shore the next day, watching as RCMP dive teams searched the area. Mounties told reporters her body was found in 10 meters of water, around 9 meters from shore. Bert's family said that day left him a broken man.
How has it impacted him?
His health. It's impacted his health.
He can't sleep. This is 4 years.
Yeah.
Can't sleep.
Been in therapy.
Counselors.
Still seeing counselors.
But something bothered Arlene's sister Debbie about the story she heard from Bert and from the police.
You felt it was important to let the police know right away.
Absolutely. I said, my name is Debbie Hennig. I am calling regarding my sister Arlene Westervelt. I'm telling you, this is not an accident. She cannot reach for a bottle of water and tip a canoe. Every one of these people, their reaction was, oh my God, that's impossible. That doesn't make sense. Arlene could swim.
The Arlene Debbie knew was at home on the water. Debbie remembers police brushing it off.
He said, there's nothing to indicate foul play. He said, do you realize how many drownings there are annually on Lake Okanagan?
They thought it was a tragic accident.
Absolutely. They told me it was a tragic accident.
Debbie wasn't the only one questioning Bert's story. Shelley Westervelt is Arlene's sister-in-law, previously married to Ed Westervelt, Bert's brother. She believed it was a tragic accident too. until she overheard a conversation between her then husband and Bert.
He said, "Ed, I need to talk to you. That story of Arlene's death is not what really happened. What did happen is that Arlene did make her way up onto the boat. She was hanging with her arm over one side and her leg over the crest, I believe, of the boat." And he said, "And Ed, I was so damn worried she was going to tip that boat over on top of herself that I pulled her off."
Pulled her off a boat?
Pulled her off the boat. He said, "I thought she would tip that boat over on top of herself. She went under. And when I grabbed her wrist and I had her wrist out of the water, Ed, she punched me so hard to my left shoulder."
How do you reconcile the differences between those two stories?
So then I started to question everything. I didn't believe him anymore. It was that moment that my whole theory, my whole thought regarding my sister-in-law's death completely changed on a dime.
A moment Shelley says also led to her marriage falling apart. This second story wasn't what Bert had told Dawn or the police. Detectives visited both Shelley and Debbie to ask questions about Arlene's death. It turned out Mounties had quietly started a murder investigation.
Was it a relief to hear that the police seemed to think along the same lines as you?
Oh, absolutely.
The police were taking this seriously.
Now they were.
Their investigation would last almost 3 years, and then, on April 6, 2019, authorities charged Bert Westervelt with second-degree murder. At a hearing at the Kelowna Provincial Court, Bert made bail, but the prosecution's case was far from ironclad. It's a long leap from suspicions among friends and family to proving a murder case in court. The murder charge had Arlene's uncle Don questioning what was going on. Arlene was visibly upset the last time he saw her alive.
She seemed like something was bothering her, and then she started crying. And I asked what was wrong, and she didn't want to talk about it. And finally, she said, "I guess all married couples fight."
And Shelley says Bert told her husband their marriage was on the rocks.
What do you think was changing?
He actually said that they were heading for divorce, so that's what was hard to hear, that things had gotten that bad. He had also expressed that Arlene and he were living very separate lives. Arlene didn't care to be around him much. She would rather be with her girlfriends or working at her gym.
W5 has confirmed that Arlene visited a divorce lawyer shortly before her death on the lake. But whatever they discussed is not going to be admissible in court. It's still covered by solicitor-client privilege, even in death.
Not the only hurdle the prosecution would face. Arlene's death was initially the focus of an investigation by the BC Coroner Service, who didn't treat it as suspicious. Dr. John Butt is an independent retired pathologist in Vancouver. After a career of studying bodies to help courts and juries uncover a person's final moments, he turned his eyes to this case.
I'm very concerned about the way it was adjudicated because there was embalming before the autopsy. I'm familiar enough with the embalming procedures to know that the evidence after a body has been embalmed is not as good.
An embalming is a procedure to preserve the body for a funeral, not for a criminal case.
So you have incisions, you got bodily fluid replacement with chemicals.
Yeah.
That's got to result in a lot of changes to the body.
The toxicology is pretty well shot.
Not just toxicology, embalming also makes it difficult to pinpoint the cause of any trauma to the body.
If a criminal case is resting on that autopsy report, what are your assessments of its odds of success?
My impression is that it's artifacts are difficult, and for the Crown, in certain cases, they're going to be tough.
It's going to be an uphill battle.
Tough, yeah, going to be tough.
The case faced serious difficulties. No access to Arlene's meeting with her divorce lawyer and problems with the forensic evidence. But the biggest blow to the case may have come from a direction no one ever expected.
You knew, it seems like early on, that you would have to fight for justice here.
Yeah, absolutely. The fight of my life began in those moments.
Coming up,
Oh my God, that's impossible. That doesn't make sense.
frustrated families search for justice.
The RCMP told me they had lots of evidence, and then all of a sudden,
When W5 continues.
Our lives were changed forever the day Arlene died. We now live with the added anguish of not knowing what happened.
September 2020. Arlene Westervelt's family and friends gathered at the Kelowna courthouse, demanding answers.
Arlene's death has shattered our family. She had such an infectious laugh that brightened our lives.
Memories now tinged with pain, ever since Arlene drowned while canoeing on Okanagan Lake with her husband, Bert. A death that was first thought to be a tragic accident, then a homicide. Bert was charged with second-degree murder. But the case faced major challenges, including problems with the forensic evidence and proving whether the couple's marriage was in trouble.
He said, going to put a little display of pictures for Arlene's funeral.
Shelley Westervelt is Arlene's sister-in-law. After Arlene's death, she recalls talking to Bert about photos for the funeral.
He said, the pictures I really want are the ones that I took on the beach with Arlene that last day. And he said, but I can't get into her phone. She's got a password. I don't know her password. He said, but a good friend of mine, he said, I might have mentioned him before to you, named Brian Gately, is going to come over, and he's going to see if he can do me a favor and get into that password. I was not suspicious of anything at this point.
And you see them exchange the phones.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. 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 And there were a number of other people there.
Yeah, it's not easy to get into a locked phone.
No.
The man Bert was referring to, Brian Gately, a Westervelt family friend, but he was also a senior RCMP officer.
You can do a lot of things with someone's cell phone. Banking, emails, records.
Right. Never, ever, never crossed my mind that he'd have any other reason to be getting into that phone than for the pictures, the purpose that he told us for.
That raises some very, very serious questions.
Word about Gately's personal involvement in the Arlene Westervelt case had made its way to Chris Williams. He's a former Mountie, medically discharged, then turned outspoken critic of the force's disciplinary process.
Can anyone at the RCMP just hack a phone?
No. But generally speaking, a phone would only be accessed in the data off it pursuant to a judicial authorization.
You need a warrant.
A warrant.
And doesn't sound like there was a warrant here.
Doesn't sound like it, no. This is a conduct investigation mandate letter.
Williams had received a document describing an internal RCMP investigation.
One of those documents appeared to be relevant to the Arlene Westervelt case.
When I looked at the vetted document, the allegation appeared to be consistent with what I had been hearing from other officers regarding high-level officer misconduct.
What kind of misconduct?
One of those was providing personal opinion with regards to an active investigation. And the second allegation was with regards to the use of Celebrite equipment, which is technology to access electronics and gather information from them.
To hack a cell phone.
Accessing data that would otherwise be inaccessible.
Celebrite is an Israeli company that makes technology used by law enforcement around the world to access data. Its use in Canada has been described in around 30 court documents. It's opened cell phones in cases from drugs to child pornography. And sources tell W5 that the technology was used in the Arlene Westervelt case. In this parking lot in Kelowna, Shelley says that phone was returned to Arlene's husband, Bert.
It was not the same gentleman he handed the phone to, it was a different gentleman. And they shared a few words, maybe 30 seconds, and Bert hopped in his vehicle and came home.
And you thought this was just a favor?
Absolutely, I had no idea.
Williams believes Arlene's cell phone had been hacked, not as part of the murder investigation, but as a personal favor for Bert. A potential breach that infuriated Williams so much he decided to confront a senior Mountie at an unrelated news conference.
Given the cover-ups that have happened at this district over the past few years,
That's his voice. He's concerned about what he believes is a pattern of unethical behavior by some Mounties. Just 2 weeks later, a bombshell. Prosecutors decided to stay the second-degree murder charge, meaning the case against Bert Westervelt was suspended and after a year could be dropped completely. Arlene's family hired lawyer Anthony Oliver, intent on getting answers about the investigation.
We called to the minister to do so if it hasn't been done, which is to fully investigate Brian Gately's involvement and to determine what it is that he knew in respect to the cell phone, what he relayed to the investigating officers, and for that to be used in the prosecution. The clock on the one-year stay period is ticking, and it looms large.
Is it possible that you going forwards to the RCMP, do you think that could have tripped off a procedure where they felt now they had to disclose this misconduct to the Crown? The Crown may have said, that's a headache in an already tenuous murder charge. Maybe we have to drop it.
That's possible. I think there's serious questions to be asked of the Crown and also of the RCMP at the highest levels.
I imagine something like this is catnip for a defense lawyer.
It's pretty powerful.
W5 asked the RCMP about these allegations. We received this statement: internal conduct is subject to Privacy Act restrictions unless there is a conduct dismissal hearing. But they claim that the stay is unrelated to the conduct of any RCMP members or employees. All prosecutors will say is they received new information that reduced the likelihood of conviction in the case. Staying the charge blindsided Arlene's family.
What was your reaction to that?
Oh, total shock because the RCMP told me they had lots of evidence, and then all of a sudden the court has stayed. It just don't add up to me.
It's a bit of a roller coaster ride, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
I literally sobbed. I think I screamed. I think I swore. A combination of all of it. My heart started racing. I had that same feeling of these electric currents going through my whole system, my whole body, as the same moment that I heard that she died.
Since the charges have been stayed, Arlene's family haven't been able to get closure. And it appears Brian Gately was never punished or found responsible for allegedly accessing Arlene's cell phone as a personal favor to the man accused of killing her.
Remember those discipline records? They seem to show the RCMP wasn't exactly in a hurry to do anything about Brian Gately. They say his superiors knew about the allegations, but didn't start an internal investigation for 9.5 months.
In the meantime, Gately was promoted to acting chief of BC's Organized Crime Task Force. Then he retired from the RCMP.
When an RCMP officer resigns, what happens to a code of conduct investigation?
I think it goes away.
Just a get out of jail free card.
There are provisions under the Conduct Measures Guide that allow for a conduct authority not to accept that resignation or retirement pending the outcome of the conduct.
But that's not what happened here. Gately stopped being a Mountie, so the force couldn't discipline him. He's now a police sergeant with BC's Organized Crime Agency, vetting marijuana dispensary applications for the province. W5 reached out to him at that office multiple times for an interview, but no answer. We tracked him down outside Victoria.
We're here from W5. We have questions about your role in the Arlene Westervelt case. We want to know what happened with the phone, what happened shortly after the case.
Yeah, my family is super sad about Arlene. And very sad. But unfortunately, you know, I'm a witness in this case. There's stay proceedings that's been placed in. I'm gonna get called as a witness in the future. The RCMP, they've told me, we don't want you to talk to the media. The last thing I want to do is put any kind of risk to the case against her husband on this.
But you talk about risk, but there's a document that says that that alleges that you used Celebrite equipment to hack that phone.
I don't want to put the case at risk.
Isn't that putting the case at risk?
No.
So what happened with that? Please, we really want to know what happened.
Any investigation into Gately appears over with no resolution. Records show at least a dozen Mounties get that get-out-of-jail-free card each year, resigning before they can potentially be disciplined. W5 also reached out to Bert himself to find out what really happened to Arlene. He wrote W5 an email saying, "I have been advised by my lawyer that as this is still possibly before the courts, I must respectfully decline." He goes on to say the charges were dropped because I did not commit any crime. Bert's siblings insist he couldn't have killed his wife.
What I'm trying to get is a sense of the loss of your family.
This was a wrongful arrest. Can you imagine being put through that for 4 years? In addition to the loss of his wife, you have no idea. We have no idea what Bert's gone through. It's been very difficult for us, but it's been horrendous for him.
That leaves Arlene's friends and family in limbo. Many had planned to come to Kelowna to be here on the day of Bert's preliminary hearing. It was canceled, but they came anyway. They want to have Crown Counsel, the minister, anyone explain in public why the murder charge was stayed and whether Gately will be investigated further.
We have been denied the right to the trial process that would reassure us that justice has been served. Not only must justice be served, but it must be seen to be served. We haven't seen any justice. We are in the dark. We need answers.
Arlene's family is pursuing this every way they can. They don't want the secrets of her death and what happened to that criminal case to remain at the bottom of the lake.
With the murder charges stayed, prosecutors have until this summer to try and proceed with a case against Bert Westervelt. None of the allegations against him have been proven in court, but Arlene's family is not giving up. They've set up a Justice for Arlene Facebook page in their quest for new tips.